6144.
On air at 96.7 FM. Online at hometownnewsnow.com. This is your number one source of news and information in LaPorte County. 96.7 The Eagle. Welcome to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle, LaPorte County's original social media. Sound Off is a public interest forum that encourages your voice to be heard on the topics and issues impacting our local communities. For the next 30 minutes, we invite you to be part of the conversation by calling 219-362-0522. And you can now text your questions to the Liquor Vault on-air line or by email to soundoff@967theeagle.com. This is a topic-based program, and we ask that you keep your comments brief, concise, and related to the topic being discussed. The views expressed on Sound Off are those of the host or callers and do not represent the opinion of 96.7 The Eagle, Spoon River Media LLC, or the sponsors. The Liquor Vault on-air line is now open for your calls or texts at 219-362-0522. This is Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Hello, friends. Today is Friday, August 20th, and it's time to Sound Off. Back in the studio today is our honorary Sound Off legal analyst and LaPorte County prosecuting attorney, John Lake. If you have a question for John Lake, call or text the Liquor Vault on-air line at 219-362-0522 or email soundoff@967theeagle.com. But first, it's time for On This Day in History. On this day, 32 years ago, in 1989, Lyle and Eric Menendez shot their parents, Jose and Kitty, to death in the den of their family's Beverly Hills, California home. The brothers then drove up to Mulholland Drive, where they dumped their shotguns before continuing to a local movie theater to buy tickets as an alibi. When the pair returned home, Lyle called 911 and cried out, "Somebody killed my parents," obviously not saying that they were that someone. In March 1996, both Lyle and Eric were convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. They're both now in their 50s. Each brother has gotten married in prison to women on the outside. Eric married his pen pal, Tammy Sackerman, in 1999, while Lyle has found two women willing to marry him. A little depressing for some of us, right? Lyle has found two women willing to marry him. Anna Erickson, a former model who divorced him after a year when she found out he had been writing to other women. And then Rebecca Sneed, a journalist who he wed in 2003. And that's On This Day in History. Welcome to the show, Mr. John Lake. How are you, sir? Do you remember the Menendez brothers?
I do remember the Menendez brothers, and I remember, that would have been my second year of law school. So it occurred right before I spent my second year of law school over in London, and that happened in August. So I remember it happening, and then I left a couple weeks later, and so it was kind of an interesting case, to say the least.
I was pretty young when it happened, so it's one of those things where I remember it happening, but I don't remember a lot of the details. I was very taken back by that they're now in their 50s, so.
Yeah, we're all getting older.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff Wukeser, our producer today, is not. He just stays the same. But, hey, if you have questions today for John Lake, you're welcome to, whether they're local questions, national questions. Again, if we don't have answers, we'll just make them up. But if you have a question you'd like to ask, please call or text the Liquor Vault on-air line at 219-362-0522 or email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. Let's start with some local stuff here, all right? Sure. There was a story on hometownnewsnow.com, our partner news agency, and in some of the other stories about a man recently who was caught with a camera in his house. And he was allegedly recording a foster, child with this. And we had some feedback and maybe even some pushback on the story online that this man only had a 1-year sentence, and it seemed a little lighter. And I know I've talked to you about this, and it kind of goes, the whole conversation is a little bit into sentencing guidelines, these kind of things. But what happened to that story or in that case, and why did a guy that was accused of and found guilty ultimately of this crime, why did he only get a year?
He didn't get just a year. I mean, his total sentence is 9 years. So what they're talking about is executed sentence in the Department of Correction, and then he has to spend another, I think, 4 years, wherever the judge, there's an argument whether he'd spend that in work release or whatnot. He pled to the highest charge. So he pleads guilty to the level 4 felony, and then pleads to another charge. And you're limited with a person who, he's 68 years old. Some of these cases you'll see never has a criminal history, and you're limited in the sentencing. You can't max out everybody. And it was an attempt. The level 4 was an attempt case. So there's certain things that people have to understand. Number one is sometimes we enter into a plea agreement that has an argued sentencing portion, which is then it leaves it to the discretion of the judge, and the judge is limited in what they can do by what the sentence is. First of all, in a level 4 felony, it's 2 to 12 years. I mean, you don't get a 100-year sentence for this, unfortunately. I mean, and trust me. There's a lot of things that I disagree with, and I complain to our legislators every time I see them about certain cases and certain charges, and that we're restricted in what we do, and that the advisory sentence on a level 4 felony is only 6 years. And so that's where you have to look at is that when a person, they look at aggravating circumstances, the judge when they sentence, and then mitigating circumstances, and not having a prior record is a mitigating circumstance. In fact, they pled guilty as a mitigating circumstance. So when you start off at that, you're going to be at the advisory sentence. You don't start at 12 years. You start at the advisory sentence as far as sentencing goes, as far as a Department of Correction, and does he need to go into Department of Correction versus does he need to have some sort of counseling. So there are certain things that we put in the plea that he's going to be on probation, and he has 2 consecutive charges. He'll be on the sexual offender registry for 5 years after he finishes his sentence. That he has to register, and then he has to go through the SOAR program, and he has to be on probation. He can't have any of this material. He can't have any of these computers or anything else, or access the internet. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to do is reform the behavior. This is not a situation where somebody's putting hands on they're doing things, they're trying to get pictures and stuff, and I don't want to get into all the details, but he pled guilty to it, pled guilty to the highest charge. And sometimes we make decisions based on pleas because the survivors of the incidents sometimes do not want to go forward. I'm not saying that in this case, but I just, in general, we're not doing pleas without the input of the survivors, the victims of a case. We're very cognizant of making sure. So what's being reported, I don't know. I didn't write a press release on this, but it was a case that when you asked me about it and I looked at it, I'm like, well, it's actually a 9-year sentence. It's not a 1-year sentence. That's just what he goes to the DOC, and not every person is going to end up in the DOC. That's just the reality that do I agree with that? No. But that's the reality of what I have to deal with, and that sometimes when a person, the first time they get caught committing a crime, and maybe unless it's murder or something else, they're really, the reality is that we're restricted in how much time they're going to spend in the DOC. Can you real quick, because a couple of things that you've said here that I want to get some clarity from you, because I think this is a really important conversation here, especially in the last couple of years. We've talked national crimes against the person, these kind of things, rape charges and everything. And you've mentioned to me before, not every person that has been raped or sexually abused wants to go to court. Are they, again, what are some of the reasons that you hear from victims that say, I don't want to go here and I don't want to charge this, I would prefer to plea it? Why do we hear that sometimes? Okay, so this kind of comes back to what I'm working on right now is doing trauma-informed investigations, that the survivor of a sexual assault, that we are informed in the way we understand they have been traumatized, and to approach the way that they remember or the memories accessed by them during the situation. And so what happens is that statistically, and I just went through a trauma-informed investigation training in June, and you find out statistically, obviously we've talked about this before, that only 20% of people will disclose a sexual assault, and so we're the numbers are enormous that do not come forward. And why is that? Because number one, society if it's a woman or a man. The number one thing is like, okay, what were you wearing? What were you drinking? Were you drugged? Why'd you put yourself in that place? Why
Victim shaming
it's blaming the survivor, which is wrong, because consent. If there's no consent, it's an illegal act, and so we have to start from that point of view. We as a society are automatically, and so that survivor believes they're not going to be believed. That they're questioning me, they don't believe me, and so the statistics are false reporting of sexual assault is 2% or less. So 98% of people come forward are telling the truth. And it's just the manner of the way, and the issue that we get into and why they're not believed is that police are used to, taking down just the facts and getting a chronological, but people who have been assaulted, and have undergone a trauma, whether it's from sexual assault or it's a physical assault or whatever, they don't recall things chronologically. They're not able to, they access the instinctual part of your brain to survive that trauma, because your brain automatically goes there because you're in danger, and no one knows how you're going to function until you go through that circumstance. You can't choose to have a reaction in that, and that's where you get a lot of military. They train all the time live fire so that they can get used to it, so they can have instinctual reactions, and this is what you do, and train you that. But most people aren't trained that way. So when you're assaulted or sexually assaulted, you're going into the 5 sentences is how you are going to recall it. And what they found statistically is that of the 20% of the people who may come forward and disclose something and get part of the process, the criminal process, 85% of those people after the first interview do not want to have any contact again, because it's they're reliving the trauma. We're not doing it the right way. We are not handling these survivors in the appropriate way that trauma-informed investigation should be done. And that's why right now I've been working on creating a soft interview room to deal with these traumas, and Blue Chip Casino has come forward and provided me space to build this out, and I'm working on the design that we're going to have access to it 24/7, so that we can do these in a interview, so we don't have to take them into the jail and go behind closed doors or go into what we call an interrogation room, because they're not the defendant, but that's how they're from their point of view. And if you never sat there and go through this training, you start thinking of it, all of a sudden it's a paradigm shift. You think, wow, I never really thought about it from that standpoint. All I'm trying to do is get the information, but we're not getting the information the right way, and we're re-traumatizing them, and they don't want to have anything to do with it. So it's a very, very important issue that at some point, when they don't want to participate, and sometimes they don't want to live through that trauma. Sometimes you have a young child, and the parents don't want them to participate. And there's things that we try and do if they're under 14 to be able to play their forensic interview, or if they're a protected person that they have some sort of mental issue or disability that we can prove, that we can then, if they're older than that, still play that video. And that's why we do forensic exams. It's not because we don't believe them. This is what we found to be the best and most appropriate way to deal with the trauma, and to get that information and then help them heal. I mean, I really work very, very hard on our SART team, our sexual assault response team, and the way we are approaching this, and that we're doing this all in a coordinated manner, that we're doing it the best way possible to help people who have been assaulted. And we get people, and it's not because we want to prosecute every case and get more prosecutions. It's my first thing is, let's heal the people that have been traumatized, because we're not reaching that 80%. And if we can get more of them to come forward, and at some point, if they do want to then prosecute, great, we're going to be there and we'll support them every step of the way. But I'm ultimately going to make my decision on a plea, and I don't care what the public thinks about it. It's really ultimately what's best for that survivor. I'm going to make the decisions best on them, and try and prevent somebody else from being hurt, so that if we can have this person on probation for the next 9 years, and we can prevent this from happening again, and then look at him, okay, in 9 years he's going to be almost 80 years old. What are we looking at? What's the best thing overall for justice? And that's our job. Our job is not to win; it's to do justice. And sometimes it's making these pleas that we're trying to do things. And I understand where people think, hey, everyone should go to jail, and that's fine, but that's not always the best solution.
All right, we've got LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney John Lake on the show. If you have a question, you're welcome to call or text the Liquor Vault on air line at 219-362-0522. That's 219-362-0522. You're welcome to also email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got a question, let us know. We're going to come back in a couple minutes to talk a little bit more about what's happening in the county. I've got a couple questions about what happened in some national headlines that I'd love to get Mr. Lake's opinions on. But keep it where you're at. Stay right here on 96.7 The Eagle. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Join 96.7 The Eagle every Sunday morning from 9 to 9:30 a.m. for Bethany Church's Sound Up. Enlighten your Sunday morning with inspirational words of faith from Pastor Dennis Meyer. Bethany Church's Sound Up every Sunday morning from 9 to 9:30 a.m. on 96.7 The Eagle.
Save big money with 11% off everything now at Menards, your home improvement store. The 6-inch new construction recessed housing makes installing recessed lights safe and simple. It features airtight construction with built-in push-in connectors for easy wiring. All Lithonia lighting, utility, recessed housings, and trims are 11% off now at Menards. Good through August 21st. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
Every 6 minutes, a utility line is damaged by reckless digging. So Indiana relies on 811 superheroes like Steve the plumber,
I contact 811 before I do my work.
Mary the gardener,
Before I plant a tree, I contact 811.
and Mike the landscaper.
I dig for a living, but always contact 811.
Prevent damages or injury. Call 811 or go online. 811now.com.
Sponsored by the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, this station, and the Indiana Broadcasters Association.
Who's hungry? Good, because I've got a deal for you. Dennis Adele here to introduce something new to the Morning Mayhem every weekday at 6:50 a.m. It's Denny's Diner. Yep, I'll be cooking up some trivia questions, and if you have the correct answer, you'll be the winner of a $20 gift card from either JJ's Sideout Bar and Grill, the Burger Bar and Grill, Ringer Sports Bar and Grill, Nowhere Bar and Grill, or Louis Cafe. So join me weekdays for Denny's Diner at 6:50 a.m. on the Morning Mayhem for your chance to win here on 96.7 The Eagle.
Michiana weather.
Skies stay mainly sunny this afternoon with a high up in the mid-80s. For tonight, mainly clear with a low at 66. Saturday could see a late day storm with a high at about 86. From the Weather Center at HometownNewsNow.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley. Right now, 82.
We're waiting to hear from you. Dial or text 362-0522 and let us know what you think. That's 362-0522. Back to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Welcome back, friends. This is Nate Laux, and you are listening to Sound Off, and we've got LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney John Lake on the show today. One of the things I want to talk about here locally is I know you've tried to prioritize child support collections and getting those caught up and things like that. Why has that been a priority for you and your team, and how are you guys doing on that?
I mean, we are last year and during the pandemic, we actually collected over $10.5 million. And I think what people don't realize is that we collect millions of dollars, well over, $9.5 million usually on an ongoing. And we set the goal to get to 10 million because it's important. One of the most important things for obviously children is getting the support that they need to have to be able to buy their clothing, their needs, their necessities, and that type of stuff. So it's a priority of the 4D, and they do a very good job. And one of the ironies of last year was that in the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs, but people who if people fall behind because they lose their jobs, that's obviously we work with them. We want to get them. We'd rather have people working and paying their child support than going to jail. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to exert, the criminal aspect of it and bring these people in and get arrest warrants and do whatever. But last year we were able to collect even in the pandemic. And part of it is that because of those stimulus payments, we were able to grab those, and that whether it be a deadbeat father or whoever the non-custodial parent that was supposed to be paying was getting the money. And a lot of times, we do that through tax returns and that type of thing. But it's important because you bring a child into the world, and you should be responsible to help support them. And so I'm a strong advocate. Being a father of 7 kids, it's just something you're supposed to do. And so we're going to support our child support division and the parents out there, and they work very, very hard to help them out.
All right, comment online here from Daryl James Borton. I think our county is very lucky to have John Lake and his staff in that office because they work very hard to keep us safe. All right, let's get to a call. Hello, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for calling. We've got John Lake with us today. What's your question?
Good afternoon. Thanks for coming on, Mr. Lake, to answer our questions. My question concerns these deadbeat parents, so to speak, and it's not always a father. Sometimes it's the mother. Do you guys have an investigative team that can go and track these people down when they work for cash, or they have a vegetable stand, or they sell other items for cash? They're getting the money, but they're not getting it to the children like they're supposed to. I know your staff is overstretched, but is there some way to investigate, take their cell phones away, take their driver's license away, make their lives miserable like they do the parents? Thank you, sir.
Thanks for calling. That's a good question. Obviously, I've heard of this before, where somebody will try to only get paid in cash so they essentially don't have to pay their child support.
And if you have any first of all, yes, we try and do the investigation on those. I do have somebody, and actually we're bringing somebody on in a part-time status who is an investigator for the DOC who will be able to assist in those type of cases. But one of the things that we do is that the information we get, we do look into, and sometimes we ask for support from the police departments, the law enforcement agencies, if we're not able to get to it, because if they're doing that and it's a crime, then we need to have an investigator. But we do investigate those claims. I know that in the last 2 years we had a couple. I know Mary was working on a couple of cases where we had some roofers who like to pay in cash and was able to go after it. And because one of the biggest issues you have is that we can garnish wages, but if they're being paid in cash and they're underreporting their income, and they're deliberately just doing it, because for whatever reason, and it's not right. But we do look into that. We do the investigations. So the more information that we have, we do look into that, because we also look at from the aspect of holding the employer responsible. And there were a couple of cases that we were actively looking into where people were deliberately paying them in cash. We were going to, because then they're aiding, assisting, and causing a crime of avoiding that. So there were actually a couple of cases that we almost pulled and filed on the. But then they started paying. They started saying, okay, once we explained to them that you can't do this, you cannot facilitate this. This is illegal. We got the cooperation, which we'd rather have. We'd rather have the cooperation than have to charge people.
All right, let's get to another caller. Hello, you're on Sound Off. Thanks so much for calling. Thanks for listening. What's your question for prosecuting attorney John Lake?
Hello. My question is, in the state of Maryland, you get behind on your child support, they suspend your license. Now, the individual moved here to Indiana. Did Indiana suspend their license? They get behind on their child support of the state of Maryland.
The state of Indiana, they do. Yeah, we can seek the license suspensions. You can actually, there are people who, I know one case years ago where lawyer and doctors have lost their licenses, had them pulled. Where they are being suspended for non-payment. So downstate, if we have that information and we know they're deliberately doing it, we will seek. I know the child support office will do that.
All right. Here's a question. I don't know if you're going to know about this. I'll ask it just in case you do. Is Tim Stavos and Joe Haney right about the bridge bid? Was there something illegal happening there?
That's since it's not criminal. I don't know. And my whole thing is State Board of Accounts. You're getting into an area of law that I don't practice in, and. So I can't say that they're correct in that. I can't say, because I actually have not watched the commissioners' meeting. I had some other things going on, and so I don't really want to weigh in on one way or the other. What I do find disappointing is I really wish that we'd not have all these political aspects to it. Let's do what's best for the county. We have a bridge. Growing up in Michigan City, that bridge, I remember when that bridge would go down, it's a problem. And so if there is a way to pay for the repair, and unfortunately, we're stuck with a bridge that has historical designation on it, that they can't replace the gears. They got to keep it all the original parts. They got to do everything. So we have a very, very complicated circumstance there with that bridge, and to keep it up and going. And if it goes down, if you've ever been in Michigan City and tried to get to the lakefront, you got to go through center, and it's all the way around, and it becomes more difficult for police or ambulances or anything else to get to the lakefront. So it's a concern. I really wish politics wouldn't play in, because I think there's a lot of politics of, getcha or gotcha, or, against, whether it be, I really don't care what party you are, Democrat or Republican. Let's do what's best for, once you're elected, do best for everyone else. And so I don't want to weigh in more than that, because I think there might be something else going on.
And we've talked about this on the show before, that there are so many different players at stake here. Again, people don't realize it's not just about what Michigan City wants. It's not just what the county wants. Actually, the Coast Guard gets a voice in that as well. So having that bridge working is not only something the county has to do, but also, there's implications with these other agencies as well. So
yeah, and so unfortunately, if you have to do competitive bidding, we all know that is going to be expensive. It's going to take time. Because so they have had people that work on the bridge, and however you have to get it paid, or however you have to do it, I know Rich Mrzinski and Mark Yagelski have been working on that bridge for the last however long, 16 years together or stuff. So I would defer to them and their expertise on it. And again, the politics of it, I think we have to put aside. And right or wrong, State Board of Accounts, I can talk about them, and haven't always been happy with them. They've not turned in cases to me that I thought were crimes, and they just, so I'm not a real big fan. As I think Earl Cunningham said, I read in the paper article that they're a paper tiger, and I kind of would tend to agree with that, actually.
All right, let's get to some other questions. We've got John Lake, prosecuting attorney, on the show. If you've got a question or a comment, 219-362-0522. The Liquor Vault on-air line is open, 219-362-0522. You can call or text us. I want to talk a little bit, because this is a news story that's gotten some traction as well on hometownnewsnow.com. That the Supreme Court rejected a challenge to Indiana University's vaccination requirement. And I know our legislators are interested in this as well, because there's been some, legislative work essentially to ban what they call vaccination wallets or whatever, this idea that you have to show proof. Is IU a governmental agency, as our state colleges or not? Well, the Supreme Court said no, they have the right to do that, correct? Is that right, what they found?
Well, I think they rejected the initial request to have an injunction. I'm not sure of all the details. I just know that Amy Coney Barrett had rejected it, just their plea to stop the mandate and require them not to have the vaccination. And I think it's based on, you have to go back. There's a 1905 case, and I think there's a 1922 case. Both dealt with smallpox. And if you go back and you read the articles dealing with the outbreak in 1905 and in 1922, and then there was another outbreak in 1946 that my father-in-law was had treated. The last smallpox.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, he gave a presentation, but he was a young doctor. He had just graduated 1946, right after the war. They had an outbreak, and so they had patients. So he saw 4 of the patients that had the smallpox in New York City, and they actually were able to vaccinate 6.5 million people or whatever it was, and they only had 4 deaths, but they actually had more people who died from complications with the vaccinations. And so it was, the irony of that is you have people who complain and they're worried about getting the vaccination because of complications. But ultimately, your argument, I guess, would be a false argument. Hey, only 4 people died from smallpox, and look, more people died from the vaccine, and so the vaccine's bad. Smallpox isn't very dangerous. That's overlooking the whole idea of what smallpox is and how dangerous it is, and it wiped out whole indigenous people when we got here from us giving it to it, bringing it from the Europe over. So if you know your history a little bit about America and the colonies and all that, you understand
smallpox blankets and these kind of things, some awful things, right?
Yeah, awful things that were done. But ultimately, I think this, unfortunately, the pandemic has kind of become a political softball, and masks and not wearing masks have become like a political statement. You don't know why a person is wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. They may have COVID and they're wearing a mask to protect you from getting COVID, or they want to not get it because they are in immunocompromised condition. You just don't know what other people are, and I think we need to have a little bit of an understanding that when a person wears a mask or doesn't wear a mask, or you require a mask or don't require a mask, it's not a political decision; it's a health decision. Some people choose not to get vaccinated. That's fine. That's their decision. If ultimately, you asked a question about employers, before I came in, can they require them, or schools? I think there is going to be something that there's more of a push that, voluntarily doing it. But unless you have there's a religious exemption you can have in Indiana, as well as you could have some sort of compromise to the allergic reaction. My daughter has that issue with certain vaccines that we have to be careful of. So it's something that you can get an exemption to it, but ultimately, overall, what I'm concerned about with this pandemic is that if we don't get enough people vaccinated, you're going to get these mutations, and you're already seeing that with this Delta one, and this Delta one's now hitting younger kids, and so it's something that, what happens if we get to like The Stand, the movie by Stephen King, one of these that we get a mutation that is more lethal, and this virus actually learns how to kill people more prevalently. It's already can be passed on. Now it goes to the next stage. What are we going to do? It becomes, that's where I kind of think about is that if you don't want to get a vaccine, fine, but if you get and there's a lot of people now, if you look at the statistics and people, I see it and I'm on the calls and things of that nature, 98% of the people that are presenting to the hospital are unvaccinated. And I know it's frustrating. I've read a couple articles for healthcare providers who are very, very frustrated with that because, there's the old, you being a pastor, know the parable, or it's not a real parable, but it's a story about, God, it's like I prayed for God to send me help. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I sent you this person that, exactly, I sent you that, and you failed to realize that that's it. Maybe the vaccine was that answer to your prayer and you're not going with it. So I don't know. Smarter people than I know about the vaccine and the health area. I kind of leave it to them. I'm happy that I'm vaccinated, so I don't have to wear the mask all the time, but now we might have to go back to it. Yep. It is what it is.
All right. Well, we've got prosecuting attorney, LaPorte County prosecuting attorney John Lake on the show. The Liquor Vault on air line is 219-362-0522. We're going to take our final break of the day. If you have a question, please do give us a call, send us a text, and I'd love to present it to him. All right. Keep staying where you're at. Don't turn the dial. We'll be right back here on 96.7 The Eagle.
Hi, this is Michael Morrison with the New York Blower Company. The New York Blower Company has been in business for more than 132 years, and we are continuing to expand products and services worldwide. We are an industry leader in manufacturing premium quality engineered fans and blowers to the marketplace. If you have welding and production experience, I would like to personally invite you to apply for our available positions. We offer a complete benefits package with competitive wages. Come see what sets us apart from the rest. Visit nyb.com or visit us on Facebook to apply today.
It's Food Truck Thursdays at Sowers Buick GMC. Bring your family and friends out to enjoy these local food trucks only at Sowers Buick GMC, 1900 East Lincoln Way in LaPorte. Help Sowers Buick GMC support our local economy and fill your bellies while you visit. It could be pizza, it could be taters and walleye, or it could be hot dogs, but you won't know unless you follow them on Facebook for dates and times. So make sure to check out Sowers Buick GMC Facebook page for more information.
When it comes to school delays or closings, you can always count on 96.7 The Eagle for fast, dependable, accurate updates. Whether it's on the air or online and social media, we keep you up to date whenever there is a closing or delay of the area schools and businesses. School businesses and closing delays are brought to you you by
Alliance MD, Flanagan Tire, Harmon E. Pools, The Melt Kitchen, Frank Alcazar Funeral Home, Essling Chapel, Swanson Center, Allstate Prendergast Agency.
So for the latest in closings and delays, turn on your source for news, weather, and local information, 96.7 The Eagle.
Join 96.7 The Eagle every Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. for Calvary Baptist Church's Faith and Worship sermons. You'll be enlightened with Pastor Tim Schreier's Words of God and music. Be sure to join us every Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. for Calvary Baptist Church's Faith and Worship sermons. If you like what you heard, be sure to join them at Calvary Baptist Church's location on Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. and Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock for worship. Calvary Baptist Church is located on I Street here in LaPorte.
Looking for a hard-to-find item you can't find in the stores? Maybe you'd like to sell a few items you no longer use or need. Maybe you're looking for help around the house or yard. Tradio is the answer. Every weekday following your 9 a.m. news, join Joe Happel and Jeff Wugazer for Tradio on 96.7 The Eagle. It's your time to call the Liquor Vault on-air lines at 362-0522 to buy, sell, and trade just about anything, even those hard-to-find items. Tradio, brought to you by Sowers Buick GMC and by Lighthouse Estate Management. Join us for Tradio, weekdays from 9:06 a.m. until 10 on 96.7 The Eagle.
LaPorte County Cars, the car business done right. Locally owned, great inventory with conventional and in-house financing. Transparent sales from start to finish. See them at LaPorteCountyCars.com, on Facebook, or stop in and see Gene today.
Your opinion matters. We invite you to share it by calling or texting the Liquor Vault on-air line at 362-0522. That's 362-0522. Now, back to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Welcome back, friends. So glad to have you listening to the show today. We've got LaPorte County Prosecuting Attorney John Lake with us. A couple questions we've got here. Here's a question we received through our text line. I have a question. When a person is $20,000 behind and still not paying and the custodial parent passes away and the kids are older than 18, who gets the support when and if it's collected?
First of all, they would open up an estate, and then the support would go to whoever was the custodial parent at that time. And it was supposed to be used for the good of the kids, but ultimately there could be an argument made, that the kids might say we are owed that support, but if the other argument is that the custodial parent had to supplement, and supplant with that support that wasn't paid. So it ultimately may go back to them, but that's how we.
If the custodial parent has passed, like you said, it'll go possibly to that estate.
I'm sorry. It was the custodial parent. It would go. Yeah, it could go into if the kids are old. It would go to the kids then, because it would go to their estate, whoever that person was. Sorry, I was.
No, you're fine. Yeah. So just because a person has died doesn't mean that the debt owed in custody payments is forgiven. Correct.
That's correct. I mean, ultimately, the estate would be opened. It would then receive the money, and then ultimately be distributed to the kids or pay the debts, because she may have had to incur, she or him may have had to incur credit card debt.
Yep.
And that would ultimately then fall on the estate. So by making that person whole, you are making the kids whole.
Sure. All right, let's get to a caller. Hello. Thank you so much for calling. Thanks for listening. What's your question?
Good afternoon, guys.
Hi.
I got a couple things all on the same topic. It was back in June on the south side of Michigan City on Paz Road. There was a home invasion where my neighbor was attacked by a couple guys with guns. First, I just curious if you got any leads on it, if you have anything come up about it, anything like that. And my second thing would be, if you could maybe give some of the elderly people some tips about, like, don't open your door if you're not expecting somebody, just tell them if you need help. I already called the police. The police are on the way, stuff like that, or have classes for them or something. But, because they how do I want to say it? They don't think that's going to happen to them, but it will. There's just some bad apples out there. So, but yeah, I was just curious if you had any leads. I'll hang up and listen. Thanks,
bud. Thank you. And we haven't. I can't really talk about an active investigation, but I can't say whether we have leads or not on that, because I'm not without having being able to pull up my computer and looking into where we're at. But number one, your point about, and thank you for the call, your point about elderly not opening the door, if they're not expecting someone and someone's at the door and they're afraid, don't hesitate to call 911. And I think, we have an adult protective services unit that I head up that we run for, the 6 counties. I've talked about it before on the radio here. And it's very important that we take any of those home invasions seriously. We investigate them. And if it's something that we're not able, and I will follow up when I get back to the office and talk to my investigator to look into that, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to solve the crime, because we do take those seriously, and we want to protect the adults as much as we can.
And I'll speak here briefly on behalf of John Boyd and Paul Breton and, all of our police. If you are elderly listening to this and you've got, a question of whether or not it's safe or something, or somebody at the door you can trust, call 911. And if they come out and it's nothing, it's okay, right? And so if you suspect that something might be going on or you're scared, it's okay. You can call 911. That's what they're there for. They're not only, police aren't there just to protect, they're also there to serve. So, well, thank you so much for being on the show, John. I'll give you the final word. What do you want our listeners to know?
I just thank you for allowing me to come on the show and answer a lot of diverse questions. There's a lot of things that I can't comment on or I don't want to get into because of politics. My job, I view, is that politically it shouldn't be politically motivated office at all. Unfortunately, I do have to run for office. But we have transparency. If you have any questions or you need anything answered, feel free to contact me at my office at any time.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for listening. I want to remind you all, we do podcast these episodes afterwards. If you ever miss an episode of Sound Off or you want to listen to it again just to hear my sweet, sweet sounding voice, you're welcome.